Today I do some weightlifting. My router thinks it's a helicopter, and I whack a block. How's it, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Greg and I have been so excited to do this project, which has been a dream of mine for quite some time, and now after many moons and in between other projects I have finally completed it. For those who don't know what wood this is, I'll give you a hint. A color.
Blackwood, sir.
Yes, it's Blackwood from Neisner. Initially, I was only going to build an 8-seater dining table with live edges on the sides using 2 thin slabs, but the guys at Timber 2 Processors were kind enough to throw in some offcuts.
For free!
So I'll be making a coffee table and 2 side tables as well. Oh, and also a breadboard with the smaller offcut. I know people usually get wire wheels for their angle grinders, and after doing some comparisons, I found these wire wheels for my drill, which A, don't stab me with wire needles, and B, were better priced.
I think I just got myself a pretty good deal.
With that, I removed the loose material left from the bark, which is slightly less tedious than sanding because you get to see the changes occur quicker. I was a bit trepidatious of what to do with this knot, as some would cut the whole knot out, while others would remove the loose material only. I eventually opted for the latter because I didn't want a large lump of epoxy in place of the knot. So let me know in the comments if you would prefer the knot or if you prefer epoxy in its place, which I'll be doing for the breadboard. Stick around to the end of the video where you can see how these two come out. Random subject. You may have noticed that I'm a bit of a fan of superhero movies, and not just because the special effects are amazing, but I'm a bit wishful of having their abilities like this, because in my version, when encountering a little dust, this happens. Oh, the humanity. This second slab for the dining table is a lot heavier than the first, so I'm already thinking at this point, how am I going to lift the 2 slabs once they are joined with epoxy? I thought this unique feature would be better on the outer edge rather than being covered with epoxy. In my opinion, I prefer natural edges like this, instead of the straight edges that I'll do for the coffee and side tables. Now just needed to cut the slabs to a rough length to fit in the molds, which if you're using near entry-level tools, be prepared to do not only multiple passes, but if your slab is relatively thicker, you'll need to flip the slab to finish the cut.
Oh man!
At this point, my fairly new blade was already starting to wear due to the smoke and burn marks left on the wood. So instead of doing another pass to cut through the small stubborn layer, I decided to use more barbaric methods.
Moving on.
As mentioned previously, for the coffee and side tables I'll split them and use the live edges for the river. But you know how this goes, so I'll spare you the visuals. After that, I wanted to check the layout and dimensions for the molds, while simultaneously ensuring the screw holes are under the wood and not where the epoxy will be.
Can I just do a quick FYI?
I already had these powder-coated table legs made at a company called J&T Metals in Wellington in the Western Cape. Now I just needed to flatten the slabs on the one side only before they go into the molds, and will start with the smaller slabs which I've stored away safely.
Please be a secret door. Please be a secret door. Please be a secret door. Yay!
I must confess that I am intimidated by using my router at high speeds, but because I need to remove a lot of hard material, I adjusted the speed to medium and this happened. So after I bravely slowed my router back down to 2, I could only remove small amounts of material at a time. I also asked my community for advice and was skeptical of this response even though my router didn't lift with any other small bits at medium speeds. But it was after this response that I was able to resolve the problem. Having said that, I was only able to fix the locking mechanism after I had flattened all the slabs on the bottom.
Bottom.
With the combination of this slab being so warped and the low router speed, I had to raise my router's depth to get over this hump. This was proving to be very time consuming and frustrating, but not nearly as frustrating as putting my back out from something so pathetic. If it was done during placing the slabs in the molds, I'd probably feel better about myself. But this happened a few days afterwards when I bent over slightly to fill some small cracks with epoxy.
Who am I kidding? I can't start this rigorous working out at this point in my life.
Maybe these last 2 slabs did have something to do with it.
This mortal form has grown weak. I need sustenance.
So after some sustenance, I divided my pours into 2 as the maximum thickness I could pour was 50 millimeters. So I simply divided my total volume of epoxy by 2 and counted my drops of dye to keep the color consistent. I also don't have an air-conditioned garage, so keeping the thickness well below the maximum ensured me that the epoxy wouldn't exotherm by curing too quickly, which would result in the epoxy smoking and potentially cracking.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
I was glad that I had no trouble with removing the molds, but the epoxy overflowed onto one of the blocks used for holding the slabs in place. So when a few gentle taps failed, I had to strike what I thought was an impressive blow. I then decided to buy a brand spanking new blade which allowed me to cut through the slabs in one pass.
Wow, that's great.
To finish cleaning the slabs that had a lip, I went over them with a flush trim bit before moving on to the sanding process. With my random orbital sander, I started at 80 grit to remove the belt sander lines, which you can see better on the epoxy. Maybe better from this angle. To soften all the sharp straight edges, I rounded them over with an 1/8 inch bit and then sanded these edges afterwards with 180 grit to remove any marks left from the router. I set my router a little lower to allow some room for the progressive sanding grits in order to bring the level back to flush, which left the round over intact. I also water popped each slab after sanding to 120 grit and then sanded up to 240 grit before installing the threaded inserts and applying the finish. It's a good idea to do a water pop at least once, as this raises the grain of the wood for a smoother feel after sanding. And just before the final sanding pass, I took the time to clean out and fill all these crevices that tried to hide from me.
It's okay. He can't see me.
I can see you.
He can see me.
You'll notice that there's a lot of material removed from the dining table. The reason being is when I flattened the one side to go into the mold, I was sidetracked for 2 weeks to do some other work. So in that time, the slabs had warped and I had to re-flatten them. On the plus side, it made the table a lot lighter to pick up.
Does it? A happy accident.
Once all the touch-ups were done, I wanted to install the threaded inserts for the bases and started by making indent marks to drill the holes. But I found it was better to drill pilot holes with the bases in place as I did here and come back with a larger bit, as this worked out more accurately. For the other slightly misaligned threads, I ended up drilling larger holes in the steel bases to allow for more wiggle room. Now that the threaded inserts were installed, I then moved on to the finish. As soon as the undersides were done, I immediately flipped them to do the top and the sides to avoid moisture absorbing into the wood.